Hi, I'm Estefano Ramirez, co-founder of Tonsma and host of the Web3 Growth podcast. Welcome to a very special episode where we'll discuss how the CMO of Ambire Wallet, Vanina Ivanova, I hope I said that right.
Yes, you did.
We'll look at how to onboard the next wave of Web3 users. Vanina has been a CMO at Ambire Wallet for almost 6 years now, and has been through the good, the bad, and the ugly of Web3. She has a strong background in marketing and growth marketing with over 10 years of experience in growing brands and more than 7 years in the Web3 world. So basically, you're a true OG.
Thank you. I like to think of myself as of an OG rather than admitting that I'm actually old.
But yeah, any key points that I've missed there, or anything you want to add, maybe?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well. Yeah, I've been in Web3 and blockchain and crypto marketing for the past close to 7 years, which in real life is probably 70 years, I'm guessing. So it has been a while, and I've seen a lot in my career.
Yeah, I bet 7 years is definitely, like, even 1 year in crypto. It's just such a long time. That just shows how fast paced the industry is, I guess. Um, but yeah, so let's get right into it. So I'm going to ask you a question about sort of like bear market versus bull market. Now, what's your overall experience? What has it been trying to like acquire new users during a bear market versus a bull market? And I'm guessing a follow-up question to that is, has it changed bear market to bear market as the industry grows, if you see what I mean?
Well, yes and no. I'm going to start with bear market versus bull market first. Obviously, it's much easier to get new users, to acquire new users during a bull market. However, the users that you get through a bear market are the users that stick with you. These are your hardcore users who later on become brand ambassadors and help you attract more users, whether in a bull or a bear run. So I would say that even though it's a piece of cake to get more users in a bull run, I would, as a marketer, I would always choose the bear market users because these are the people who stay with you long term. They are the people who give you feedback. They are the people who help you improve your product or your service. And they are the people who act as talking heads on your behalf. So they are, yeah, and it is much harder. Obviously, it is much harder to get them. But that is also a very good indicator of how strong your project is. Because if you have the correct USPs, if you have the right brand positioning, if you have the correct message and the correct tools that people are needing, if you're solving the right problems, then the users will come no matter of market conditions.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the bear market shows you how good your product is as well, because you can
Absolutely.
build a really, like you said, you can build passionate and raving fans of your project if you have a genuinely good product. And I feel like it's much easier to this is like the cliche, isn't it? It's much easier to build during the bear market because you actually get the insightful feedback from those not just power users, but like just avid users of Web3.
The profile of those users is slightly different because the people who are with you in a bull market are usually with you for the speculative value of your project, and usually that's the token. So they're not necessarily power users of your product or your service, and once the money dries out, they're out as well. So they don't really, yeah, they don't help you perfect your offering. And you can
Mm.
offer a really shit product, a really shit platform, make a quick buck, and then be out of it. But for us, the people who want to be in the industry and to build the industry long term and to create a meaningful and sensible ecosystem, I think it is the bear market users that we need to focus on and that we need to rely on to help us achieve that. Because they're
Yeah,
the actual users, like they do have an actual problem that they want to solve with your product. And if your product can solve the problem for them, if it's good enough for them to use, they will stick with you. If your product is just bad, then they'll be moving on looking for another solution.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's and I guess my next question would be is sort of like, when will this sort of like link between bull markets and bear markets essentially stop? Because if you look at Web2 and you look at, for example, Spotify and that sort of thing, I'm guessing their users go up obviously as there's better financial conditions in the world. But how bad does it impact them when like the rest of the economy is doing bad? I'm not sure if it impacts them as much as it impacts Web3. Because there isn't that correlation of a token. There isn't that correlation of an
Yeah.
NFT.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, I don't know if Spotify is the best example, because I don't know if you're aware of that, but platforms like Spotify and Netflix are actually bleeding money. They're literally not making any profit. The only thing is that they're big enough for big content producers to be like, okay, you can delay that payment or this payment because, you know, you're big enough. We can't really go without you. And what we have to keep in mind here is that the profile of their users is slightly different, because the product is a lot more mainstream, and they still have new waves of users coming in. Like, they have teenagers who are acquiring their own devices, and they're ready to have like their own Spotify account, whether it's a free or a paid one. So I would say that the target audience is very different, and I'm not sure if we can compare it. But again, looking at my social circle, the one of the first thing that they cut off when money is tight, when we're in recession, is entertainment services like Spotify or Netflix, or they would just like downsize to just one streaming product rather than having 5 different streaming platforms that they pay subscriptions for. And because of that, I am guessing that traditional Web2 products have it much, much harder during a recession, when they're losing users left, right, and center, and when their churn rates are becoming insane. Whereas in Web3, we're kind of used to that, because the cycles there are, yeah, they're a lot more quicker. So we've been there, done that, got a t-shirt, and we're ready to move on after each cycle. We kind of prepare for that, and we're built for that, and we create our business models with this churn rate, with these churn rates, and with this possibility in mind.
yeah, I think you're right, actually. Yeah, we're sort of built with the volatility in the back of our minds, so we sort of try to plan ahead. At least the good projects do, anyway. So what do you feel are the biggest hurdles then when trying to onboard non-native users to Web3?
Well, one of the things that we have been struggling with, and when I say we, I mean we as an industry, not we as Ambire Wallet, is media propaganda. I don't know if you have noticed, at least that's my impression, but in Europe, but also in the States, I believe, there's a lot of anti-crypto, anti-blockchain propaganda. You keep hearing about crypto being bad because it's used to launder money and to fund drug trafficking and people trafficking and stuff like that. And then nobody talks about all the fiat money that is being used for the same purposes, that is significantly more than the crypto used for illicit affairs. So there's a lot of, and also obviously banks and the traditional fintechs and financial systems have an incentive to power up that propaganda and to keep people within their grip. However, a recession like the one we're in right now prompts a lot of people to look for alternatives and to look for options that will not have them locked out of their money, which is the case with a traditional bank. You can have your bank account frozen at any time without any notice. and then it's a battle to get it unfrozen if the bank has decided to do so. They don't even need a reason, or honestly, according to most banks' terms and conditions, they don't even need like a proper reason to lock you out of your account. Whereas crypto offers people a lot more custody, a lot more control over their assets, in a way. And I think that a lot more people are looking into that aspect of things. And also the general political and geopolitical situation in the world is not great right now. So a lot more people have seen turning towards libertarianism, and
Mm,
just kind of like people are disheartened by the current state of affairs. And I can't believe, personally, I can't believe that we're living in 2023 and we have to experience and live through a war, a real war fought with like weapons and tanks. And I don't know, it's insane to me. I've never thought that this would be something that I would see in my lifetime, yet that's the
mm.
reality for the people in Ukraine. Um, so I think that a lot of people are preparing for the worst in a situation like that. And crypto is one of the ways to protect your assets and to protect your financial state as much as you can.
Yeah, I think the media the media really doesn't help, and governments as well. So, crypto has been banned in China for a while, yet China is one of the biggest countries, one of the countries with the most amount of users. And
Yeah.
it
So,
and it
same
feels
with
like,
India, if you think about it. India is also very much on a governmental level. It's very much anti-crypto, yet Indian citizens are like, yeah, we're going to use that because we can.
yeah, and it goes back to the sort of like education bit, doesn't it? Where like you mentioned, banks in the terms and conditions, they could just take your money if they feel the need to take your money. And in fact, I think I read this the other day on an article that most banks, if for example they're front run, you just can't access your money, and you're literally, your money goes to zero. You have no money. And so that sort of brings to light the education part about, people should be aware of what true ownership means and how crypto helps solve that problem, um, essentially.
Absolutely. The good thing is though, more and more people are beginning to care about this and to look into that and educate themselves. And then it's up to us, the industry builders, to provide the proper resources for people to learn and to figure out what's the best way for them to enter into crypto. But to circle back to your initial question, propaganda is just one of the many hurdles that we've got, and one of the many frictions that we've got when onboarding the next new big cohort of
Mm,
crypto users. And the other one, and that's probably the biggest one in my opinion, is UX and the fact that Web3 services and products are built in a complicated
mm,
and complex and bamboozling way that regular users find quite off-putting. We live in times when you can sign up for any Web2 service literally in seconds. You can have a new TikTok account in like 3 clicks or 3 taps on your phone. You can set up a new fintech app within 5 clicks again, and then a 2-minute KYC process. And then you go to crypto, and it all of a sudden it's unnecessarily complicated. It's like, why do you want me to sign up with a seed phrase? What the hell is a seed phrase? How do I keep it? Is it okay if I just put it in a note on my phone and then upload it to the cloud? Like, there's all of that. And then even if you are an experienced user and you already know how to use crypto, you discover something new. I remember a couple of years ago when flash loans became a thing, I was so confused by the concept of flash loans initially. I was like, it took me so long to wrap my head around it. And that was just on the consideration level. Like, I had not even attempted to use a flash loan. And then once I got to actually using a flash loan, again, it was like so complicated. There was so many different steps, and there was so much stuff that I needed to do that at a certain point you have to ask yourself, is the learning curve worth it as a user? And then as a service provider or a product provider, you have to ask yourself, how many of my users will find my service or product valuable enough that they're willing to go through that learning curve? And the answer is not that many, honestly. Crypto is not rediscovering the wheel. We are not reinventing anything that has not been there in one form or another. So the problems that we're actually solving, they're not that groundbreaking. And that means that we as builders and developers and even marketers, we need to figure out ways to make this simple, to
Mhm.
make it easy, to make it familiar. Then that's the other thing. People consider crypto and blockchain as something new and scary, and they're hesitant to try it out because there's a lot of risk involved. There's the risk of losing assets, but there's also the risk of looking stupid and feeling stupid. And nobody wants to go through that as a potential user. So it's up to us to create tools and make it easy for people to get that sense of familiarity and that sense of security. And for a new person to open a crypto wallet and feel like they're using their Venmo or Cash App or PayPal or whichever fintech app they're using, to be like, oh, okay, that's similar to this, so I know what to do now. It's easy for me to figure out what to do at this point. So that is the biggest, I think that's the biggest obstacle, and that's what we need to collectively focus on as an
Yeah,
industry.
I think the obviously the user experience is very important, but that education part is also important. And I have a feeling, whilst everything is, we mentioned previously, obviously all the stuff that's going on in the world, around the wars and how um, governments are seeking for sort of more control with the stuff like CBDCs.
Yeah.
I still feel like there's a large percentage of the population that probably, I know it sounds a bit silly, but that sort of stuff might not be as important to them. So I think that people, and I think Polygon are going in a thinking about it in the right way. People need to find other ways of engaging non-Web3 users. So, for example, Polygon are partnering with Starbucks, and their loyalty
Yeah.
program is going to live on Starbucks. They have millions of people in their loyalty program, and now they're going to slowly start moving them towards Web3. And I feel like that's a good angle of getting in new users. Collaborations with already established brands. I think Nike is already doing something with Polygon.
I think here would be a very nice spot to mention what Reddit did a few months ago with their NFTs. They did a massive campaign selling bajillions of NFTs for bajillions of dollars. And nowhere throughout the campaign did you hear the word NFT or blockchain or wallet. No, they were calling them avatars, something that we're so familiar with. And they said, okay, here's this vault where you can keep your avatar, and here's a seed phrase to protect your vault, but like just write it down. Like they didn't make it seem like it's a big deal. And that also happened on Polygon, if I'm not mistaken. So see, that's an amazing example of how you can actually sell a technology to people without making it sound like a new piece of technology. Kind of like frame it as something old, existing, and familiar. And to be honest, this kind of contradicts your point of how important education is. And I slightly disagree with you on education. Like, what I mean here is, yes, it is important to know where you're vulnerable as a user and how you can do your best to protect yourself. Sometimes from yourself, and not just by malicious actors in the industry. But think about that. When you go to the bank and you want to you want to wire me money, you go and you tell the bank teller, say that's a brick and mortar bank, and you go and tell them, hey, I want to transfer Vanina this amount of money, wire it. I want it to arrive today or tomorrow latest. Is that okay? Yeah, it is. But you don't go and you don't ask the teller, hey, how's that actually going to work? Like, what is the route of money from my account to Vanina's account, right? You don't need to know what's happening under the hood. You just need to know that you are achieving result A with action B. That's
Mm.
all you need to do. You need to go to the bank and fill in a form or whatever, or you go to your online banking, and again, like you just click a few things, and then the money is transferred, and I receive the money. And again, I don't ask myself the question, oh, do they use like a routing number? What is a routing number? How does this whole transfer work? And in the blockchain community, we're kind of trying to educate people about things that are way too complex as they are. And they don't really need to know those things. What we need to do is build tools that eliminate that complexity and that reduce the learning curve to a minimum.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I think there's like various ways of onboarding users, but I think for non-crypto natives, and I was going to mention that we should probably stay away from using words like NFT and stuff like that, complicated words that they might not necessarily know, which Web3 natives do use, but use words like what you mentioned with Reddit, avatar, for example.
Exactly.
It's a really, really good example of, not complicating it. And on your point on the banks, it's absolutely true. I know that. So if you want to send a transaction from me to you, uh, so if you live in the UK and I live in the UK, I think there's like 10 different systems that your money goes through before. And I
Yeah,
don't know how the systems work. I don't need to know how the systems work, like you said. I
exactly.
just need to know that you're receiving the money that I'm meant to send you. So yeah, it's a really interesting thought. And I think blockchain gaming or Web3 gaming might be a good way of getting a wave, the next wave of users, essentially. Just try to focus on the less on the technology side, as in you need this NFT or you need this, and more towards what the value it is that you're getting. So is it going to be fun? Is it a strategy game that I need to really think about, that sort of thing?
But again, that's because it steps on familiar principles. When you think about it, I am not a computer gamer by no means. I play Candy Crush Saga on my phone to just relax a little bit. I know I play stupid games, but that's okay. That's okay. I cut myself some slack about that. But I've been listening to a co-worker's kid talking about Minecraft, and he was telling me how you need this particular item to pass this particular level. And I'm like, okay, this is familiar. Right. And it is something that is applicable to Web3 gaming. You need to have this item, NFT, we just call it this item or this, like, I don't know, whatever crown or whatever the actual item is. You need this item to be able to play the game, and that is how you get access to the game. And again, you don't need to talk about NFTs, you don't need to talk about wallets. When you, again, years ago, I used to play this incredibly stupid game called Farmville on Facebook. It was so stupid, but I've probably dedicated hours of my life to it because it was also a lot of fun, and we played it. I played it with friends, and people are tribal, so we tend to gravitate towards things that make us connect to each other. So I used to play this game a lot, and in that game we had tokens. There were coins. They're like little made-up coins that you can purchase with actual money, and in a way, that's what we're doing right now with crypto gaming. Right? You still have a token, it is digital, it's virtual, it's not tangible, it doesn't exist in real life, and you kind of get it, and you need a place to keep it. And in my case, I was keeping it within my Facebook login, or like within the game within Facebook. In this particular case, people are keeping their earnings or their assets in a crypto wallet, but they don't need to know it's a crypto wallet.
Yeah, I remember Farmville. I used to spend
Was
hours on that as well. Clash of Clans is another one
Yes,
where you spend hours building your fort and your land, and yeah, and you actually spend like actual fiat money to make it go quicker, because obviously you had to wait a certain period of time before. And it's a good sort of example of using gamification as a way of providing fun to your users, but also finding a way to make some sustainable revenue. Um,
absolutely.
so, so yeah. Now we touched upon this. In fact, the whole conversation was about this. But I just want to go into it a bit deeper. So everyone, I feel like everyone knows that the UX is or user experience is one of the biggest hurdles for Web3, and it's a big part of solving that puzzle of onboarding new users to Web3. How should founders and CMOs think about it? Because, and again, we've already sort of delved into this a little bit around, think of what Reddit did, stay away from jargon. But is there any other insight you'd like to add to that?
Well, what Reddit did was a little bit more to the communicational side of things, and then when we talk about UX, I think it is very important for marketing and product teams to work together and figure out not just what's the best way to communicate things, but also what's the best way and what's the optimal way for a user to use your product. And that is done through a lot of research and user testing and a lot of trial and error and a lot of tests inside your product. But I think it's important for us to ask the users, because I have noticed that a lot of times we operate on assumptions that end up being so far from the truth that is just insane. You kind of like assume something based on what you know, but as builders, we're usually power users of Web3. And at the same time, we're trying to onboard people who are not as experienced as we are, or people who are just getting started with the Web3 journey. So we need to set assumptions aside and actually listen to the users, establish valuable and meaningful feedback loops to make sure that we've got this core community of people who are willing to share their time and their insight and let us know, hey, I'm actually not using this feature of your product. I know you've been advertising it a lot and you think it's amazing, but I'm not using it because it's not solving a problem for me, or it's not making my life easier. It's not making me feel special because it's just, I don't see an application of that feature. And this could be potentially a feature that you've spent months and months working on. And all this can be avoided if you talk to the users and you actively participate in the conversation with them and make sure that you know what their pain points are so that you can build for those pain points. And I think that this is something that we have been overlooking a lot in Web3 for a long time now. And it's time to go back to our users and talk to them and listen to them, which actually puts community building and community management into the limelight. It makes it more and more important for us to build strong communities as a source of constant feedback for us, to help us create products that fill market needs.
Yeah, it goes back to basically just the fundamentals of marketing. Of if you're building a product or a feature or whatever it is that requires users, is make sure that you're always asking your users whether what you're building is useful. And I think it's just the fact that our industry moves so fast. Because another thing that you need to consider is when you're building your community, you need to be careful who you let into your community, because like obviously
Yeah.
you want power users, you want users that will want to help you build the company, the product, the project. And if you do, like for example, airdrop hunters and just people who are freeloaders, if they're part of your community and you want genuine feedback for your products, then you're not gonna, if they do provide feedback, it's probably not very useful.
Well, it depends. To be honest, it depends. In my personal experience, these people, yeah, they will not provide valuable feedback about your product, but they will break it in the most unexpected ways. So these people you can actually use as great QA testers.
Yeah, that makes a good point actually. We've so with Vemp, we've recently launched a new staking app, and we did like a community event where this is our staking app, it's brand new, everyone's been calling for it because our previous staking app was just atrocious. But yeah, as one of the processes of improving it was, we built this new staking app, it's very user friendly, go break it. And the feedback that we've had so far has been positive, with small little adjustments here and there, and that just goes to show that, you know, and it gives you another reason for the community to engage and feel like, you know, they're being listened to. So yeah, I think like market research overall within crypto is, no one's doing it essentially, or barely anyone is doing it, and it's such an important thing.
We're struggling. I think all of us Web3 marketers are struggling with data. And the reason for that is that, first of all, most of us do not profile users. And when I say most of us, I mean most companies and most projects. We don't provide, we don't get that much of a customer data set as we would get in Web2, for example. We don't really dig into consumer habits. We don't really collect any unnecessary information about our users, because that's kind of like, it's a part of the crypto and blockchain ethos, right? Like, you have the right to remain anonymous, and we're going to respect that right. But as marketers, we rely on this data a lot, and it's often very, very hard to connect, because on the one hand, we've got some, even though it's very limited, off-chain data, and then we have a little bit more on-chain data, but it's very, very hard to correlate the two and find the right intersection of your users and your buyer personas, and to figure out, okay, this piece of Web2 data or off-chain data correlates to this on-chain action. So this is, I think that this is one of the things that we should solve as marketers. And again, that's a great business idea for somebody to build the tools for that. Give us the love child of Google Analytics and June Analytics.
Yeah, I actually know a few companies that are currently building that. But one way that I go about what you've just mentioned is, I know there's an ethos behind, you know, privacy and all this sort of stuff. But I look at, for example, I look at all the VEMP holders and sort of seeing what other tokens they hold, because that genuinely will tell me whether what type of community members we have. So we recently rebranded from metaverse focused to now blockchain gaming focused. And when I had a look at Etherscan to see whether we had quite a lot of metaverse holders, you know, you could see whether if they had Stand or Mana or something like that, you know, metaverse token.
Yeah.
To my surprise, there was a lot of meme tokens. there was a lot of Shiba in there. There was a lot of just you know, tokens that aren't really related to well, a high percentage of them were meme tokens. So that told me that, you know, maybe we should do some sort of metaverse related events and activities. And so we started doing some more metaverse events around. So we have lands in Mana and Decentraland and in Sand, and we started just hosting events there. And we did see a shift a little bit in more metaverse token holders, which was good. I think another thing is, and no one has built this, and we're doing this manually at the moment, it just takes a lot of time and it's frustrating, but you can actually see when people interact with other smart contracts, and you can see whether that smart contract is a sort of like a staking app or not a staking app or whatever. And again, I guess it does go back to the ethos of what Web3 is. But if we want Web3 to grow, we need to know how to spend money to grow, and that's a sort of an insight of how we should efficiently be spending money so we can grow as Web3. And then there's another tool, but you have to do campaigns around this. I forgot the name of the tool, but basically, it's basically you do a campaign to fill out a form, and you have to connect your Web3 wallet with your Twitter username and all this other stuff. But obviously, it's okay. you have to add like a warning or a notification saying, you know, we use this information to kind of like what GDPR is. Kind of
I think you're talking about Guild XYZ. That's a platform that you can connect to your Discord or like Twitter, and then there's Chasm as well that does a similar thing, and then there's Crew3. So there's a lot of companies that are trying to kind of like mash up together gamification and marketing insight and give it to us. But the progress has been somewhat slow, and but again, that's the thing. When you look at that, when you try to run a game through one of those platforms and you see the number of participants, you kind of realize that you have been operating on the assumption that people want to protect their privacy. So you never bother to ask about their personal data. But if you do ask, a lot of the users are actually willing to give you their data, some of them even for free. Some of them would require something in return, and that's okay because data is expensive and we should be paying adequately for it. Um, but again, see, that's the whole the whole model of Web3 builders. It's like we're assuming that it's like that, and we just don't we never bother to ask and to
Yeah,
try. And then once you do, and once you're like, okay, let's just try it anyway, and you're like, oh, okay, like this is the results are very unexpected. I did not really anticipate to see that. But like we're doing that at events. We do usually to get our swag, because the Ambire swag, I don't want to toot my own horn, but the Ambire swag is usually lit. It's like it's really good. And to get people to get something in return, we usually ask people to complete like a brief survey or to do like a short quiz and then just give us their email address so that we can send them marketing materials from time to time. And we don't overdo it, like we're not spammers. Um, but those quizzes, usually, again, you would assume that people would be like, oh, in that case, I don't want that. Like, I don't want to do a quiz or I don't want to do a survey to get like a hoodie or a backpack because I can just go and buy a hoodie or a backpack. But then people come to us at conferences and events at our booth and we're like, would you mind filling in this short survey? And they're like, sure, why not? And then you think, oh, they probably gave me a fake email and like they gave me like a fake data. And you go through through the results, and no, they didn't. Like they did give you their actual email address, and you would have like the occasional obvious fake emails here and there, but there's no way around that. So again, it's like we haven't been asking people for the to give give us their data and to tell us more about their consumer habits, and we probably should be.
yeah, absolutely. And just two comments on that. First of all, I'm really looking forward to getting myself on some Ambire Wallet merch next week. And secondly, um, oh, and one more comment to add. So it seems like there's a bit of difference in persona when it comes to in real life and online. It seems like in real life people are more willing to sort of give you their information than online. And
That's
I guess
true.
it's just because I guess you're in real life, you don't want to be awkward about it, or you see a person in real life, you're like, I immediately trust you. So you can have all of my information. um, and then the last comment is I'm actually I know a project that is building a sort of you stake your data, so then therefore you get paid to give out your data, which is a really clever, I think, way of going about it. But yeah, it's really interesting how Web3 enables that. You can stake your data, you get paid based on if we use your data or not.
I suppose it varies from generation to generation. Because, for example, right now, if you look at the Gen Zs, or Gen Zers, or I don't know what we call the people from Gen Z. If you look at them, a lot of them have never been on social media. Like they're very selective, and they've never been on Facebook, they've never been on Twitter, and they haven't really dumped that data about themselves. I'm a millennial, so I grew up with the internet, and I started using the internet when privacy and online safety was not a concern because like it wasn't a threat at all. So I started dumping data about myself, like information about myself, on the internet early on, not realizing the consequences of that. So at this
Same.
point, I'm like, there's so much you can find about me on the internet. Like I've put so much of myself on the internet, and it's already there, freely available. So if somebody comes to me and tells me, "Hey, I would happily pay for your data," I'll be like, "Shut up and give me your money." Literally, like, okay, yeah, if I can monetize this. But again, if you talk to somebody from Gen Z or like the younger generations, I'm guessing it would be even more interesting with the iPad babies. If you go to them and tell them, hey, sell me your data, I'm going to pay handsomely for that, they'll be like, nah, I'm good. So again, it's like
Yeah,
I'm
and
guessing there's a different generational gap when it comes to
absolutely.
that.
I remember when you could not be on the phone and use the internet at the same time
Exactly,
because
exactly,
and Gen Z are
exactly.
gonna be like, what? What? They
You're
grew up
like,
with like 5G internet, 4G internet. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
And
I
then
feel
you
that would
tell them, that the phone had buttons on it, and they would be like, "The
what?
fuck? Like what?"
I know. Actually, I saw yesterday on my arrival to Heathrow from New York, I saw someone using a flip phone, and I haven't seen someone
Huh.
using a flip. I know, in ages and ages. I was like, oh my God, someone's actually using a flip phone. Like, what? How?
I know, right? But like
Yeah.
this is how things progress and how quickly they change. And if you think about it, if you think about the progression of technology within our own lifetimes, it's not that long. I mean, I like to joke that I'm old, but I'm not that old. Like seriously, just a millennial. And then wow, like when you just think about how much things have changed, it's mind blowing. And then you talk to people like our parents or boomers who have never really used a technology more complex than the TV remote or a calculator.
Or
And
radio.
then that's an entirely different ballgame.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So going back to UX, so one of the things that we're sort of trying with a few of our clients is when it comes to user acquisition is segmenting audiences and changing the user journey and the messaging and the positioning for each target group. So as we mentioned before, we want to target obviously Web3 natives is it's like it's an attractive group to target, obviously because they understand the technology and they're
They're
more
they're low hanging fruit, let's be honest.
exactly the low hanging fruit. But at the same time, they are recycled liquidity,
Yeah.
meaning everyone is using the same users, and there's only so much, which makes it an even more competitive space to be in. So we're trying to target like non Web3 natives essentially. So for example, the messaging will change. The way we acquire users is via email or social media links and that sort of stuff, instead of using your Web3 wallet and that sort of thing. And trying to sort of bring those different users in the same environment, which is the Discord. We're still trying this and we're not sure what results we'll get, but we feel like maybe it might work. Have you done something similar and has it worked for you, or have you tried something completely different and has that worked for you?
Well, we have. When you think about a product in general, Ambire Wallet, which is a smart contract self-custodial wallet, we have the luxury of using, well, a big account abstraction, and that allows us to do a lot of things. Like, for example, offer people the ability to sign up with an email and password only, and then this is a perfect attraction point for newbies and people who are just getting started in crypto. So by offering them email and password login, you don't burden them with the keeping of a seed phrase or understanding what a seed phrase is and why the hell is necessary. So we've got that, and then we've got account recovery, again, something that is familiar and something that gives people the sense of security. Oh, what happens if I forget my password? Okay, you can recover it. Like, unlike other EOA wallets or other products on the blockchain, in this case, you can recover your account. It's going to take time, but you can't recover it. So that's great. And for power users, actually, that's a great attraction point as well, because they would sign up for the wallet in seconds, literally in 3 clicks. They would sign up for it, play around with it a little bit, maybe put some tiny amount of money, or even like play around without even funding their wallet, see if they like it, and then once they decide to use it full time and long term, they can add additional signers, and these could be, obviously, we have like traditional two-factor authentication. We also have the possibility of adding a hot wallet or a hardware wallet as a signer, as an additional level of security. So by offering this upgradable security, we're able to target different target audiences, and we're able to talk to both beginners and degens at the same time, so that every group finds something for themselves, something that they find valuable in our product. Then when it comes to messaging, it has been a little bit more complex and a little bit more challenging than that. And the thing is, if you bring people to a Discord server or to a Telegram chat, then it's a little bit easier because you still have the human touch. You have a community manager or a chat moderator, somebody who would be there to address both groups and to speak their language. But when it comes to a company website, for example, then that's where things get tricky. Like, how do you find the USPs that talk to both beginners and power users to put them above the fold on your website? And that takes a lot of work, and that takes a lot of back and forth, and
A lot of research as well.
a lot of research, a lot of user interviews, and eventually you do find that intersection, because at the end of the day, we're all humans, whether we have been in crypto for 7 or 10 years or we're just getting started. We are human at the end of the day, and we do get triggered by the same things, and we all want the same things. We all want to be pretty, successful, rich,
Comes back to
loved.
emotions.
It boils down to emotions, and also to solving particular problems. Like, for example, I'm a power user and I want to interact with like multiple DeFi apps, and I want to use that with an added layer of security. So, okay, Ambire Wallet would be a great option for me because, A, I can have like a hardware wallet as a signer, so I can have that peace of mind. B, they have a lot of DeFi dApps inside their dApp browser, like straight into Ambire Wallet. Or even if that particular dApp that I want to use is not in there yet, I can quickly and securely connect my Ambire Wallet with the dApp. So I think that, yeah, it takes time. It takes a lot of work, a lot of hard work. I like to call that blood, sweat, and tears, the blood, sweat, and tears process. But eventually get there, eventually figure it out. And that intersection may vary depending on your niche and your potential users. But we shouldn't forget that whether we're talking about trendsetters and early adopters, or we're talking about people who are like slower to join in on that technological revolution. At the end of the day, there are things that make both groups tick.
Yep, and that's goes back to being human, I guess, and being, understanding human psychology and emotions, and that sort of thing. I think specifically for you guys, for Ambire Wallet, because you're operating on let's just call it a very competitive environment.
Yeah.
I think the ones who stick around the longest will obviously be the most successful, because it is very competitive as it is right now, and we only have, what are we, like less than 100 million users in Web3 at the moment?
Yeah,
And
it's sad, and we're aiming for billion.
Yeah, we're aiming for billion, and it's crazy. It's crazy how competitive it is, given how the size of our market.
The wallet market right now is very, very fragmented, and we have to compete with well-established players on the market like MetaMask or Safe. We have to compete with smart wallets, but we have to compete with EOA wallets. We have to compete with custodial wallets, and we have to compete with non-custodial ones. We have to compete with actual wallets, and exchange wallets. So it has been a very wild journey for us, and I'm guessing it will continue to be a very wild journey. But I'm excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys have been around for ages, in terms of like Web3 terms, definitely ages. So I think you're well positioned to definitely be one of the top players in the very near future.
Thank you.
So going back to UX, do you know of any examples of any projects in Web3 that are doing UX really well, or any, if not any sort of Web2 companies? What, like, for example, Web2 I can think of, Airbnb are really good at making it easy to just book a property, or Netflix with their sort of suggesting what films to watch or what series to watch, or even Apple, when you do two-factor authentication,
Yeah.
and the thing comes up when you receive the text. That to me is like the best sort of user experience / feature I've ever seen anywhere.
It is incredibly convenient. Yeah, I mean the Web2 examples that come to mind here. It's actually quite interesting because both of those platforms were really game changers. One more than the other, but one of the platforms that that came to mind is the Todoist platform, which is a tool for organizing notes and keeping track of everything that you need to know, kind of like a project management system for your personal life. And when it first came out, I was in love with it because it was so simple yet so powerful as results. Like I could see literally my entire schedule and everything that I need to do, and all of my reminders neatly organized in different folders and subfolders. And the UI was clean and brilliant, so it was lovely. And then the other platform that I would like to point out here is Medium. I have been blogging since I discovered that you can do that on the internet. Yeah, so I've gone through multiple CMS solutions, and then all of a sudden you've got Medium, and you're used to using those big clunky CMSs with Excel-like functions and so many functionalities that you never actually use. But it's nice to know that, you know, if you decide to use them, they're there. And then you move on to Medium, and your initial reaction is one of shock. And you're like, oh, but I don't have the possibility to like do this on that or that. And then you realize that it's a platform that lets you focus on your writing and nothing more than that. So you have a very simple interface. You have so basic, like so few and so basic formatting options, but it gets the job done. You are able to convey your thoughts and reach an audience. So I think that this is the direction that we should be thinking of when designing products. How can we make things as simple as possible for optimal results?
Yeah,
And then when
it's
you think about Web3 products, I would say that some of the dashboards that we use are like that. You literally connect your wallet and you can see your entire like
portfolio. Yeah.
financial existence on the blockchain on a single screen.
Yeah, it's I think yeah, Medium is a powerful tool. I mean, just from using WordPress is a bit, you know, clunky and stuff, and then you go to Medium, and it's all very, very nice and simple. So basically, the conclusion is make something complex very, very, very simple to use, and you'll get sort of users, not just new users, but users that stay with you and use your product, and so on and so forth.
We have to consider the users. Everybody is overwhelmed and overloaded with information. There is so much going on at any given time that you have to kind of like, we have to be very aware of the brain space that people
People
have
have.
available to pick up new concepts and new tools and new services.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to Ambire Wallet now, what are some of the biggest struggles you guys have had, especially in the competitive environment that you've been? And following on from that, what are the big successes that you guys had?
The biggest struggle, possibly from a marketing perspective, the biggest struggle has been getting a Twitter advertiser account approved. Honestly, we're not there yet. Like, this is something that we really want to have, but we don't. Or a Reddit advertising account, we're not. Like, it's a hell to get there. And we've been talking to like Twitter's legal and Reddit's legal teams, and they are not really aware of like what blockchain truly is, because they're lawyers and they don't really dig into the technology that much. So that has been very, very challenging. And you know, we're still, I don't know if there will be a day when we get to the point where crypto advertisers can actually take advantage of traditional ad tech, or maybe we'll just come up with our own ad tech, like we've done at our company, our previous product before product that we started with before we pivoted to Ambire Wallet was AdX Network, a decentralized ad exchange that helps connect advertisers and publishers together. So we need to perfect that, and we're actually working on a new version of that platform. But still, it would be nice to be able to reach mainstream audiences through Twitter and Reddit ads. The biggest success, that is. I don't know how to say that without spoiling things for people, but we did have our Twitter account verified. That's one big success that we managed to get. Another big success was and it's very recent, and okay, I'm just gonna spoil it. I'm gonna go ahead and spoil it, but we have been working with the Apple App Store team to have a mobile version of Ambire Wallet put in the
Oh my
App
God,
Store.
that's
Yes.
amazing.
So that is now happening. And so we will be launching our mobile app very soon. And we'll
You,
start onboarding the beta testers group as early as next week.
oh
So
wow.
yeah, that's a
Wow,
big win.
that's a massive win. That's a really, really big win. You're gonna get an influx of users from that, definitely. Because at the moment, the only really well-known wallet apps that you can use is just MetaMask and Phantom. Trust Wallet, you can use Coinbase Wallet as well. But I feel like the user experience and the UI of all the wallets I've mentioned, actually Phantom do a pretty good job with the user experience and UI. But are just they're
Oh,
so awful.
don't get me started. Don't get
Honestly,
me started. Like it is, I have been using MetaMask for years and years and years, and that was actually part of the reason why we decided to create Ambire Wallet, because we're sick and tired of of just using bad wallets. So yeah.
yeah, that's a big win for sure. Hopefully, I can make it to the beta testing. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'll let you know so that you can get it on the ground for it. But yeah, that's very exciting.
let's talk about marketing mix now. How do you divide your marketing terms in terms of focus? So let's say like you have PR, the typical KOLs, community management, events, brand marketing, all that sort of good stuff. Even employee advocacy is a avenue that no one in Web3 seems to be exploring, and it's such a big avenue. Yeah, how would you divide your focus in terms of like percentages?
Um, you know what? It's funny, but I haven't really broken it down. Like I've never crunched the numbers to see like percentage wise how much effort we put into one or the other. What we do, and also some of the things we do on a daily basis, and some of the things are more seasonal, so to say. Like for example, we are preparing for F Denver now, because we'll be sponsoring. We'll be having our own mini conference within the conference called the Next Billion Summit. So we have been like, this has been taking up a lot of attention and a lot of efforts recently, and like in the past few weeks. But then that event is over, and then we have a little break, and then we start working on the next event. And then day to day, we focus on organic social media growth. We're very careful about our social media, and we try to make sure that first of all we actively participate in various conversations, and second of all we are able to spread conversations ourselves with our users and engage them in a meaningful and funny way. So this is one thing that we have really been focusing on. Another part of the mix that has been working really well for us is email marketing. And again, we have two newsletters. One of them is a product newsletter that tells people about news happening within the company and with the product. And then we have another much funnier and much more entertaining newsletter that talks about the developments within the crypto world once a week. It's called Web3 on Fire. So we've got that. We have been, as I said, we have been trying a lot to get on paid traffic platforms. Hasn't happened. We gave up. So instead, we are trying to work on content and produce content that would be valuable to people, rather than creating the next article that goes the 5 best Ethereum wallets or whatever, we would come up with an article telling people and teaching people how to read Etherscan, for example. Producing that type of content that would actually, we recently released an article that explained what account obstruction is, but it explained it in a way that an 8-year-old would understand it. Like, it is technical enough, but it's so simple that a child would understand what we mean and what account obstruction is. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I like that you're going about it the organic way. Because I guess again, if you're going the like the paid way, as in, you know, paid media or like KOLs and that sort of thing, it might be quite expensive, seeing as how competitive your specific vertical is within Web3. But I love the idea of using email marketing, because it's, no one uses email marketing in Web3, and it's such a, like, you need talk about owning your own sort of business's data, you know.
Yeah.
What happens if crypto content is banned on Twitter or, you know, that sort of thing? You need to have, like, email is a perfect way of doing that. We also have a newsletter ourselves. We have a daily newsletter where we just send out 3 of the biggest sort of crypto news, and it's very easy to fill in, because it feels like every day there's always big crypto news. And it's a good way of engaging our audience as well. For the Vemp side anyway, people love to see, and they often, it's often what we do is we also post the news within our community channels as well, and that often fosters conversations around the topic of the news article. So yeah, it's a really interesting way of going about it. Do you guys do any PR or anything like that?
We do. We're guilty of that. We do PR, we do SEO, we do sometimes we do newsletter sponsorships or podcast sponsorships. We would do that, but like, we don't overdo it. Our approach is a little bit more holistic, so to say. So we try to have, like, we try to cover as many organic sources as we can, together with the paid sources, to make sure that we achieve the optimal mix, and to make sure that our budgets are spent in the best possible way. So yeah, I mean, if we wouldn't go and spend a bucket of money on like a single newsletter sponsorship, for example, unless it's a part of a bigger campaign and a bigger like a bigger narrative.
Yeah, you shouldn't really run things in silos. You should look at things holistically, and I feel like, so
crypto, yeah, you probably know that better than I do, that crypto specific sources are expensive.
Oh yeah,
they're like, I mean, sponsor a traditional like Web2 newsletter in your industry, and then you're paying, I don't know, $3,000 to $5,000. Sponsor crypto newsletter, that amount goes up 10x. So it's, you know, you have to be very cautious. Like, no matter how big the budget is, you still have to be very conscious about and very aware of like the potential return on investment and how that's going to play in the long run.
And that's another thing that maybe for a different podcast episode, and this is something I want to cover, is how to calculate, you know, your customer acquisition costs, your the lifetime value of a holder, that sort of thing.
That should be a podcast on its own. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Such a vast topic.
It really is. But the reason I asked you about PR is because clients often come to us and say, "Oh, we want to spend this much," and like 70% of the budget is on PR alone, and I'm just like, "Oh, that's not a good idea." Because I feel like PR has its time and place, but it shouldn't really be your main focus of the budget. If you see what I mean.
Absolutely, but also it's the same with first of all, it makes sense if you're coming from traditional marketing. Like, if you're coming from Web2 marketing, you're probably, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a setting where you can't really optimize paid traffic and like CPC networks. You're like, okay, what's the next best thing? Okay, PR, then let's do that. And I've never understood it, because you can't really measure the results that well. Honestly, it's it's not my favorite thing. I'm not saying I don't see the value in PR. Absolutely, I absolutely do, and it's very important for our industry. But it's the same with you mentioned KOLs, and I like to make a distinction, and I like to put them into two different categories. One of them I call influencers, and the other one are the proper KOLs, like the real key opinion leaders, the thought leaders in the industry. And the influencers are the people who would be posting usually silly content. They're paid chillers. They don't even hide it. Some of them hide it, but mostly not. And then the bear market kicks in, and those people disappear. They're nowhere to be seen or heard. Why? Because it's risky to make predictions or to
Yeah.
have opinions in a market like that. And then at the same time, you've got the core, like, and these are usually core Ethereum people who I consider to be the true key opinion leaders on the market. And they don't shill products unless they actually believe in them. And they don't take money for that. Like, they would never take a payment for that. So the only way to get their attention is by basically offering something of value. And it's the same with PR. You can pay for as many syndicated press releases, but if you don't offer something that is newsworthy, then proper journalists will never pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with you there. And on the topic of KOLs, it's absolutely true that influencers come out during the bull market and they hibernate during the bear market. Whereas KOLs, and this is why I mentioned employee advocacy is such an untapped sort of strategy when it comes to just growing your Web3 brand. And it's, especially if you have technical people or people who really have been OGs such as yourself, it's so important to do employee advocacy because they themselves become KOLs within the industry. And that is something that, it's, to me, it's invaluable because, you have these, so say, for example, you work on an employee advocacy campaign throughout a year, and then in the next, even 6 months or less than that, but then those employees become sort of, the go-to for specific, those certain topics. And then that puts Ambire or whatever company in the same sort of like light and reputation as those key opinion leaders, which is very, very important. But yeah. So yeah, I
Absolutely,
think,
I agree. And if we still have a little bit more time left, I would like to point out that the core team that started building ADEX Network and now Ambire Wallet approximately 7 years ago is still with us. So we have very low churn rates as a company, and we just add new people to the team, but the rest of the people stay with us. And even the most non-technical people of us can explain to you in detail what account abstraction is, how smart contract wallets work, how to read Etherscan, and so on and so on. For example, our business administrator, she doesn't really need to know those things about blockchain most of the cases. She's an absolute Etherscan fairy, I like to call her. She would be able to tell you, like, she would just look, I would be looking at something and being like, what the hell is this? Like, what am I looking at? She would look at an Etherscan transaction. She would be like, it's simple. It's that. Like, how do you not see that? So I think it's very, very important to have like very knowledgeable, well, especially when it comes to marketing and sales teams, you have to have people who understand your product to the very core to be able to sell it to the people who are supposed to use it.
yeah, absolutely, 100% agree with that. Anything else that I've missed that you'd like to mention? Maybe any special campaigns coming up in the next few months? I know you mentioned already about the big, release of you're going to be in the App Store now.
We're gonna be on the App Store. We're also working on a browser extension that will come soon. If the listeners of the podcast, I don't actually know if that's gonna air before it's Denver. But we
It
have it
won't.
won't. Okay, that's
If you
okay
want me to,
then.
if you want me to, then I could push it forward for sure.
No, that's okay. Don't worry about it. But yeah, we've got East Denver coming up, and then we've got a couple of other big events later on in the year, where we'll be dropping Paper Hands, which is a crypto version of Cards Against Humanity, and it's an amazing game, and everybody who has played it loves it.
Yeah.
There's only one way to get that game, and it's to come see us at an event, or maybe shoot me a DM on Twitter and like ask nicely, and maybe I'll send one to you. But
Yeah.
We've got that going on. But yeah, the next big hurdle would be rolling out mobile apps and the browser extension. That's what's next for Ambire, to be able to address a bigger audience of that fragmented wallet market.
Yeah, absolutely. Very exciting times ahead. I'd like to end the podcast with a question that I ask every single guest, and it's related to sort of Web3 growth topics. So, what do you think? What would you like to learn more about if I was to do a podcast? What topic within Web3 growth would you like for me to cover, essentially?
Well, I'm always very interested in new tools, so in the pragmatic, practical parts of things. So a podcast with a segment of one new tool or a few new tools per week would be amazing for me as a marketer. The other thing that I find fascinating, and honestly, I don't have the answer of how to build the ultimate Web3 community, but yeah, that's one topic that I'm very, very interested in. Web Web3 communities, how to build them, how to maintain them, how to grow and nurture them. And then
Yeah.
the one thing that we don't really talk about, but like how do you build your personal brand in Web3? Because it's also it's a very individualistic field, Web3 and blockchain, but we're also used to working collectively. So it's
Yeah.
interesting.
I used to work for a marketing agency that specifically helps with employee advocacy and helps Microsoft and all these big companies with that. And yeah, I think it doesn't change by industry. It's just at a human level is how do you motivate your employees to get past the barrier of exposing themselves to the internet?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
which is a topic I can cover for myself.
Exactly. See, that's a lovely, lovely topic for a podcast. Like, would you dox yourself to build your own brand?
Yeah,
Which
or
one,
you
which
or you
one
might
is more valuable, your privacy or your personal brand?
or you might not even need to dox yourself. I mean, look at Zach XVT. He's known
Yeah,
everywhere.
of course.
But yeah, that could be a topic for definitely another podcast. Lastly, where can people find you or get in touch with you, Vanina?
Well, people can go to www.ambire.com and then join the Ambire Telegram chat or Discord. And there, if they want to follow me on Twitter, they can go and follow at Inks, INKS. And yes, I am old enough to have a 4-letter Twitter handle, and I wear it as a badge of honor. But I'd say, yeah, the best ways to connect to me would be through the Ambire Telegram chat or on Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you very much for coming. I had a very insightful conversation throughout the whole podcast. It's been great. Lastly, we're creating a Telegram group. So this is for the listeners and for the subscribers. We're creating a Telegram group with Web3 growth people. We've got some notable founders in there and Web3 growth people such as Vanina. And yeah, some other notable projects. So if you want to join, just send me a DM on Telegram. My username is @ZKSteph. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to. So yeah, because that really helps the show. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Stefano. It has been a really, really great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Bye.